A reading from the 8th chapter of the Gospel according to St. Mark, beginning at the 27th verse. And Jesus went on with his disciples to the villages of Caesarea Philippi. And on the way he asked his disciples, "Who do people say that I am?" And they told him, "John the Baptist, and others say Elijah, and others one of the prophets." And he asked them, "But who do you say that I am?" Peter answered him, "You are the Christ." And he strictly charged them to tell no one about him. And he began to teach them that the Son of Man must suffer many things, and be rejected by the elders and the chief priests and the scribes, and be killed, and after 3 days rise again. And he said this plainly. And Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him. But turning and seeing his disciples, he rebuked Peter and said, "Get behind me, Satan, for you are not setting your mind on the things of God, but on the things of man." And, calling the crowd to him with his disciples, he said to them, "If anyone would come after me, let him deny himself, and take up his cross, and follow me. For whoever would save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for my sake and the gospel's will save it. For what does it profit a man to gain the whole world, and forfeit his soul? For what can a man give in return for his soul? For whoever is ashamed of me and of my words in this adulterous and sinful generation, of him will the Son of Man also be ashamed when he comes in the glory of his Father with the holy angels." This passage comes right in the middle of Mark's Gospel. It's a kind of hinge point in Mark's Gospel, because it is from here that Jesus sets his face towards Jerusalem, and in the end, of course, to the crucifixion and resurrection. Prior to that, Jesus has been experiencing great popularity, mainly up in Galilee, mainly up in the north, which was the region from whence he came. So we find here quite an important turn, because we see here something demonstrated, the true nature of who Jesus is, and also what it means to be a disciple of Jesus. So it is that Jesus asks his disciples, "Who do people say that I am?" And it's a fair enough question, and the disciples give various different answers. But of course, in the end, it's not what other people think about Jesus that is important, but what you think about Jesus. So he asks his disciples, "Who do you say that I am?" And Peter answers, "You are the Christ," which is another way of saying you are the Messiah, Christos in Greek, Messiah in Hebrew. Now, what's interesting here is that when Jesus goes on to explain what it means to be the Christ, Peter clearly objects. Peter's got in his mind what he's expecting the Christ to be. Jesus is teaching Peter who the Christ really is. And because the two don't match up, Peter rebukes Jesus. And it seems to me that this is indicative of a quite common dilemma that we have. We have a certain way in which we think the world should work. Christ teaches another way in which the world does work. And the question is, do we seek to impose our understanding onto Jesus, or will we allow Jesus to fashion our understanding? What is the direction of travel here? Is it from us to Christ, or from Christ to us? For Peter, the problem was that he was simply projecting himself onto Jesus, and so he earns a sharp rebuke. "Get behind me, Satan." And this getting behind business is quite key in this passage, because if you're behind somebody, you're following them, and that's the role of the disciple, that we are to quote Jesus, to be those who deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. So discipleship, being a Christian, is about following Jesus, allowing the direction to be from Jesus to you and not the other way round, which was the problem with Peter in this passage. So we take away from this passage the importance of being followers of Jesus. And to be a follower of Jesus is, of course, to be one who goes in the direction that Jesus sets. One who doesn't seek to impose themselves upon Jesus, but rather allows Jesus to form their thinking. How do we follow Christ in this day and age? Well, we read through the scriptures and we put them into practice, and we allow them to form our thinking. The more we do that, the more we are those who deny ourselves, our own patterns of thought, and we follow Christ.